and this is really a message to all men in this room and out there who are struggling in some way. There is no other path to your freedom than going back into your stuff. There's no other way. So just start with that awareness. There is no other way. Every other way is a temporary reprieve for something that's going to keep chasing you over and over and over again, right? So with that awareness in mind, wake up tomorrow morning and set the intention to replace your judgments with curiosity.
Hi, I'm Yolanda, and this is the Curious Exchange, a live interactive event in Cape Town where we have conversations that can support people in living happier, healthier, more conscious lives with experts who are really passionate about their topics. This is the online edition so that the wisdom that our speakers share can reach a broader audience. In this edition, we feature Volker Schlettwein. He's a transformational and leadership coach that focuses on men's work. In this conversation, he shares with us how we get disconnected from our intuition and our emotions, and how men and women can get reconnected and live more authentically. Just a very brief introduction. So that's a little bit of context, but I know the juice is really in what we'll be chatting about tonight. Personally, I met Volker a few years ago, probably at Retreat Yourself or another festival like Shanti, and one of the things that Volker does is he does conscious connected breathwork with his wonderful partner Jonita. They host these events at their incredible home in Franschhoek, beautiful nature, and that breathwork session was honestly one of the most powerful things that I experienced, and it came at such a perfect timing. So just on that, and there's so much more to Volker, but the way that he runs that, there's with so much integrity and really supporting people in releasing what needs to be released. Tip of the iceberg, just to share a little bit more, is that Volker is a transformation coach, a leadership coach. He specifically works a lot with men and helping them work through ways of getting reconnected to their authenticity and emotions. We'll get into that. He combines modern psychology, neuroscience, timeless wisdom, and really, as you'll experience it for yourself tonight, Volker really comes with so much heart. I think you create a very safe space, and I think people immediately kind of drop into that and feel comfortable being open and showing their vulnerability. So thank you so much for joining us. You've been
Thanks for having me.
You've been on my list for such a long time. If you do take any clips of with Volker, his Instagram tag is @Volker VOLKER, and I'm sure Schlettwein will come up. So that's just one last mention also is that even though who Volker mostly works with is men, so much of what you do is universal, and a lot of your insights that you share tonight is also universal. So women, you are not excluded, definitely not. Okay, I feel like I've done a lot of talking. Please, Volker, you're going to lead us through a little exercise just to help us get into the room.
Just very informal. I think many of us have had a busy day, might be carrying some tension and some busy thoughts, and I think it'll be great just to take a minute or two just to come into our breath and just to open ourselves up into absolute presence so that you can receive what's being shared at a deeper level. And you might also have a deeper inquiry that comes through. The quality of your questions might be richer and deeper. If you just allow yourselves to just relax and open up. And I know that we can do with some of it ourselves, right? It's been a busy day. So just for a minute, I'm going to invite you, if you're comfortable to do so, just to close your eyes And just bring your awareness into your body. Notice how you feel. And I'm just going to invite you to bring your awareness to your breath. Slow the breath down and start to take slow, full, deep breaths through your nose. And see if you can get an in-breath all the way up to a count of 4 or 5. And then just a gentle pause at the top. And then again, slow out-breath. Again, to a count of 4 or 5. Just breathing in through the nose and breathing out through the nose or the mouth. Sometimes a nice gentle sigh through the mouth can be very supportive. And we're just calming the nervous system, we're calming the mind. Imagine that you're breathing directly into your heart, into gratitude, appreciation for being here, just for being alive. And notice the tension. Notice potential fatigue or exhaustion, tightness in the physical body. Notice whatever's there, and there's no need to do anything with it. Just welcome it in. This curious exchange, to see it as a safe space for that curiosity, where everything is welcome. And so all your energies are welcome. Whatever you're carrying, just let it be. Let it be. And just breathe and relax. Slow, full breaths through the nose, allowing each breath to take you into deeper relaxation, bringing you into your center, into presence, softening the tightness and the tension, opening the heart. And then just remain relaxed and enjoy the evening with us.
Thank you. Wow. Did that feel good? Yeah, thank you. Sure. Sure, thank you so much. So let's just dive right in with, just give us, even if it's just the essence, what is your mission? What is your mission with your work? Let's start there.
It could be quite a big conversation, but I'll give you the gist of it, right? So my work is really about the upliftment of humanity, right? But through connection. And what I mean by connection, it starts with a connection into our hearts, connection into self, a deeper sense of authenticity, a natural sense of well-being that's sitting there waiting for our attention. Beneath all the layers of accumulated stuff that we carry, there's a lot there that we're missing, that we're searching for out here, but it's right here. That beautiful heart, the well-being, and authentic, expansive potential that we're often missing. So when we can just reconnect back into our true nature and our hearts, a lot of the other things we're struggling with tend to resolve themselves. So it's really that one word, it's connection.
Oh, beautiful. Sheesh. I mean, I think you've just said a lot of things that we'll expand on. And how did you land here? How did you land with this mission, this connection mission? If you can just share a little bit about your personal journey.
So how I landed here was by being completely disconnected for most of my life, right? I'd love to say that I'm here because I got it all right and I knew exactly what I was doing. I'm here because I got it all horribly wrong. Not that we can get it wrong. There's no such thing as getting it wrong, right? We're all growing and learning and making mistakes and growing through those mistakes. But my passion to do what I do comes from the fact that I was disconnected from myself since childhood, since early trauma, disconnected from my emotions, stopped trusting my intuition, did not find vulnerability to be safe at all, or sensitivity for that matter, and I moved up and found a happy place, an illusionary happy place in my thinking mind, and lived there for the better part of 30 odd years. And that disconnection caused havoc in my own life, you know. So it was my own healing journey. And I'd love to say that I chose my healing journey consciously, but I didn't. Men are stubborn, right?
They are?
Not just men. No. And I know I'm making a generalization, but I know that there's a particular stubbornness with the wounded masculine. And to be honest, I had to be brought to my knees before I started doing the real work. And that work had me having to go back inside. I spent 30 odd years searching for everything out there, you know, building businesses, chasing money, all sorts. And I had to then do the real work, which is the journey from the head back to the heart, and facing everything that's in between, you know. And I'm not by any means saying I've arrived.
Do we ever?
There's no destination. There's just one unfolding journey. But I've come through a lot of transformation, you know, in my life, and I have changed significantly over the last 15, 20 years.
That's incredible. Hey, I love just with so many people, so many beautiful practitioners and facilitators and healers and people that I've featured here. It's always so fascinating how a personal journey has led people to this kind of soul's work. You know, it's almost as if we, that we go through those challenges to bring us to where we're really meant to be. So beautiful. That was your story as well. Why do you think, like, what are some of the causes that you've seen that let's start with people, that people get disconnected from, as you mentioned, intuition, emotions. What are some of the causes that you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are quite a few reasons, but the common ones that I'm very aware of, that I can relate to personally, and that I've worked with in men and women. I don't only work with men, I work with leaders, you know. And also a distinction needs to be made between working with the masculine versus working with men, because we all have a masculine and a feminine. And so there are women in leadership roles who require what we might call men's work, because they are in their masculine.
Yeah.
And they also have, you know, pushed away their vulnerability and denied their vulnerability. But to come back to the question you've asked, the key things that stand out for me, the one is probably the main one. I call it the original wound. I think it's the wound that we all share at some level. And it is it's lack of self-worth. Self-worth. It's the self, the essence. I'm born as a sacred child with limitless potential, you know, and a natural sense of well-being. And we all have that in common. We're all born with limitless potential. They've done the studies, you know, children up until the age of 4 and 5, 98% of them are functioning at genius level. 98% of 4 and 5-year-olds are functioning at genius level, right? By the time we get to age 15, it's down to 30%. By the time we get to adulthood, it's 2%.
Jeez.
Right, so where does it go?
Yeah.
It goes to our conditioning. So this beautiful sacred child with this limitless potential, this big, expansive, open heart that just contributes to every moment in such beautiful ways, starts to get conditioned by a dysfunctional family system. You know, a dad who can't see me, a mother who can't love me, a dad who's not home, abuse, neglect, whatever's happening there. And so what the sacred child will do is they will abandon their natural, authentic expression and those beautiful gifts and adapt their behavior to try and meet the needs of the parents who have already been conditioned by their parents, who were already conditioned by their parents. So the burden gets handed down. You know, there's a saying, what you don't transform, you will transfer.
Sure. What
you don't transform, you will transfer. So even our own children, whatever work I haven't yet done, I'm handing burdens down to my children. And we mustn't lose sleep over this. You know, we're doing the best we can. We're always doing the best we can. And there's also a profound element to this, and that is some of those burdens shape our purpose later on in life.
Yeah.
You know, my pain, what I had to deal with, shaped my purpose. So it has a lot to do with losing sense of self. Me connected to divine love and authentic expression, I then start to recognize a father and a mother who can't love me efficiently, and I'm just generalizing, you know, that looks different in many ways for different people, or for many people. But what's basically happening is a young child does not have the ability to rationalize and go, oh, Dad isn't loving me because he's got issues. Dad isn't loving me because he's had a bad day, that's why he's shouting at me. A young child doesn't have that ability. A young child says, Dad isn't loving me, therefore I'm not lovable. And that's the messaging they take on, right, at that young age. So the conditioning leads to that wound, that core wound, that then has that child so desperately wanting to be seen and loved that they will adapt their behavior. And they'll become the overachiever, the people pleaser, the peacekeeper.
It's the strategy, basically.
It's the strategy.
Strategy to be
persona
loved.
is the strategy.
Yeah.
And that's the disconnection to self. And then we end up living in the ego, the egoic mind, trying to navigate life. That's where our depressions, our anxieties, our exhaustions come from, because we are completely disconnected from our life force energy and from our essence. Right? And that applies to men and women. It's not just a male thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a particular pattern with men that's different, but the wounding is very common, and it's a shared wound.
No, absolutely. I mean, I was just saying to someone earlier that I didn't think that I had a child's wound. You know, I didn't think I had a child trauma because I grew up kind of happily, and then only through personal work, through seeing a life coach and learning about the Enneagram, etc., that even the subtlest thing, you know, over loving a child, giving a child too much love, or some things, it tells us something about ourselves when we're so little that we get stuck in that story, and then our personality and everything gets built on top of that. Like you say, we play a role. We wear a mask to get that.
Even people who strongly feel like they've had the ideal upbringing, like a good upbringing. When I work with those clients and they'll tell me they had a loving upbringing and I ask them to describe it to me, they'll often tell me how their parents provided for them. That isn't love.
Yeah.
That isn't love, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it makes you feel safer and you're provided for, and it might be the only way they know how to express love. Your dad might not know how to be affectionate, but he's out working his butt off to provide for the family. That's his way of showing love. But love is a felt thing. It's being truly seen. It's being present. It's the affection. That is love, and not everyone had that adequately. Very few have.
Yeah.
And the other mistake we sometimes make is, as an adult, we can look back at our childhood, and from the adult perspective, we don't recognize that the child self experienced trauma in seemingly insignificant events. You know, as an adult, I can look back and go, oh, I was neglected.
Yeah.
My mom forgot me after preschool, and she came 2 hours late, and I was left on the side of the road. The adult goes, it's not a big deal. For the young child, that's traumatic. It's trauma, you know. A young child being left in the cot for 10 minutes too long for their milk, crying, that can be traumatic, you know. So we are all carrying certain levels of trauma and neglect to some extent that has disconnected us in some way, to some extent, from our true authentic self. And then we end up overcompensating out there for the unmet needs that we're carrying here.
And then how does that play a role in vulnerability? How, you know, why does that then play, you know, how are those things then connected? Because I know vulnerability is a big theme in your work.
So this is where the masculine work comes in, because, and it just so happens that it is most men that are seen as the wounded masculine, because the general pattern for most men is they were told, boys don't cry. Boys don't cry. Put on your boy pants, don't be a pussy. You know, that kind of language from a tough dad who himself is completely disconnected because of how he was raised, right? As I said earlier, we don't know what we don't know, and I can only teach what I know, you know? So we're trying to hand down this toughness to our kids to be tough, and that is what keeps us completely stuck in our suffering. Because vulnerability, which is our ability to acknowledge and feel what's happening in the body, is the only path. It is the only path to our freedom, to our true freedom, our emotional freedom. And so there are many men who are, and I speak from experience, right? I did this for most of my life, chasing an external horizon. You know, I'm looking for my freedom out there. So I'm going on surfing trips, and I'm buying a second house, and I'm starting a second business, and I'm changing my relationships, and I'm doing all this stuff because my freedom is out here somewhere. In 30 years, I couldn't find it anyway. In fact, the more I achieved, the more miserable I became, because I realized I wasn't finding it in my achievements, you know.
They were empty.
So it almost compounded it and made it even worse. And so what I had to realize through my own journey is that the suffering that I was experiencing wasn't coming from my unexpressed emotions. It was coming from the avoidance of my emotions. The suffering was coming from me running away from my emotions rather than just surrendering into them, you know. And it's called the hero's journey for a reason, because surrendering into what you've been running away from your entire life requires courage. You're being asked to slow down and drop into your depression, into your anxiety, into your anger, into your grief. You're being asked to do everything your dad told you not to do when it came to boys don't cry. You see. So for women, generally speaking, it's different because there aren't only way more support systems in place, but it's more publicly acceptable to ask for help.
Yeah, to be vulnerable.
And to join those circles. And little girls weren't told not to cry. They got a snuggle from dad. You know? Again, I'm generalizing, but that's the common pattern.
Yeah.
So men are sitting disconnected from themselves in an overthinking mind and aren't giving themselves permission to return, because vulnerability is the very thing that they're afraid of. Vulnerability and sensitivity. Sensitivity is one of our greatest gifts, you know? It's that young child in their genius. That's that sensitivity that I'm talking about. But the greatest gift can cause the greatest pain if it isn't being recognized for what it is and nurtured and protected in a functional household by a mature masculine that knows how to hold it.
Yo, how's this landing for everyone? Can anybody relate? Yeah. Sure. Yeah, it's so sad for me, you know. It's I almost get tears in my eyes. Yeah, just thinking, gosh, if only. But you know, if only you know, our parents knew better or did better. But this is who we are. This is the human experience, and they were also children. They, you know, and the yeah, just personally, when I look at, you know, how my dad grew up, very, very poor, and yeah, exactly what you say. I even remember an argument we had when I was a teenager, you know, about, oh no, of course I love you. Look at the, you've got a roof overhead, you've got food on the plate. That's exactly the words that he used, you know. Yeah, so it's sad, but this is our human experience. We wouldn't be who we are today if we didn't go through all of this. Yeah.
I wouldn't change any of it. You know, I've had some really tough times. I won't go into detail, but that disconnection I spoke of within myself, it led to a really difficult upbringing of depression and very low self-esteem and isolation. I was bullied a lot, like everywhere I went. I was bullied at school, I was bullied at home by my brothers. And so I didn't have a safe space, and my safe space was always here in my own imagination, my own thinking, you know. And so So basically, I just lost my train of thought. Where was it? Wait, where was I going with this? Oh, yeah, sorry, the disconnection.
You got it. Yeah.
So I got it back again.
That didn't take long.
I just had another temporary disconnection, you see. It led to one of the most hectic experiences ever, and that is landing up in divorce after 10 years of marriage with 2 very young children, and with my ex-wife, who I was then obviously married to, and my kids moving away in a very short space of time. Everything fell apart, like my life fell apart. I lost all my money, lost the wife, lost the kids. Not maliciously. She took a job as an engineer up country, and within no time I had this void that was intolerable, an emptiness that you can't describe it unless you've experienced it. It's that separation where the only thing that gave you a bit of peace and joy, that I also took horribly for granted, by the way. I mean, I would come home from work disgruntled and exhausted, and I wouldn't even see my children. Couldn't even see them. I was too distracted and quite tired, and I just wanted them to go do this own thing in their room and just kind of leave me alone, until they weren't there anymore. Oh, hey, no. No, that's pain.
Sure.
That's pain. It hurts.
Oh.
And I came through that, some of the biggest lessons of my life. And if you had asked me whether I would take any of it back, I would not. Because it shaped a passion for what I do today that you can't get from a textbook or from a university degree. It comes from the hard knocks. It fueled such a deep passion and a growing wisdom through those lessons. I call them initiations. Every challenge we go through in life is just an initiation into a better version of yourself. And if you can perceive it that way, it helps us to get out of that victim position. Because if I see myself as suffering in life, I can stay stuck in the victim space. Go why is life so unfair? Or I can go, hang on, I'm experiencing a hard time right now, but if I can see it as an initiation, I can move through it and I can grow. And then I recognized the person I'm here to best serve is the person I once used to be. And that's what happened for me.
Beautiful. Do you think that, I'm so proud to see so many men and women, because men I often find need a little bit more encouragement to come to talks that are about whatever, health and wellness, and so really I'm so proud of everyone that is here, men and women. Do you think that men or women, the majority are aware of this disconnect? And because obviously by the time someone reaches you or reaches this room or conversations like this, there was a little spark in the beginning of something's not quite right. But how many people are not even aware of this disconnect or aware of this, like you were? Like you were.
I think there is a growing consciousness, but I think many are still quite unconscious to the fact. And I think, we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what we don't know. And so I recognize when I was in that 10-year marriage, I wouldn't quite call it a loveless marriage, but I can tell you for sure I did not know how to love. Didn't have a clue. But I didn't know that I didn't know how to love because I had nothing to compare it to. So I was one of those dads and husbands who was providing, and we had a beautiful house with unspoiled sea views, and we had all these things in place. And I was like, yeah, ticking all the boxes, we're doing great. And our friends would come over, and literally, we had so many friends who would come and talk about my wife and I as being the perfect couple, the perfect family, the perfect couple, the perfect house. On the surface, face value, everything was perfect.
Yeah.
Inside the household, emptiness, disconnection, no communication. No communication. So because of the lack of communication from me and from my ex, I didn't know there was a problem. And that's what vulnerability allows. You see, it's not only being vulnerable by me connecting back into myself and allowing myself to feel what I've been running away from. It's the vulnerability to be honest in relationship. To go, I can sense something's up. Let's talk. You know, there's a perceived or an illusionary convenience to just not going there.
Yeah.
You know, we don't want to rattle the cage, right? So we're afraid of the chaos. And what do? We mask. I just won't say anything because I don't want to upset them. Right? We don't say anything, or we just stay numb to it all until it erupts. You know, and then sometimes it's too late.
And beautifully, we're having a conversation with Shelly after this, and I'm sure she'll pick up on that.
So many men don't know what they don't know. They don't know how good it's meant to be. They don't know how good it's meant to be. They don't know that the safest place you'll ever be is in your heart. You know, when a man knows how to regulate their nervous system and really connect into a centered, grounded place within their body, like that's where you feel authentic confidence. It's not a masked confidence where we're trying to be good enough and I'm trying to be the smartest in the room and I'm trying to show you how tough I am because I go to gym 5 times a week. It's an authentic confidence that only comes from heart connection, you know. And everything we're looking for, you start to recognize is there. It's not out there. And then we start to know again. We start to remember who we are. And I can't remember who I am without my vulnerability, because that's the path back into myself.
Beautiful.
You know, I can create anything I want out there. And I work with so many executive clients who are multimillionaires. Some of them are borderline billionaire status, right? Not one of them is happy. Because what's making us unhappy is a state of being. It's an emotional state of being that needs to be resolved emotionally, not by buying another house or getting the 100th million. See, so we can, I often tell men, you've got 2 choices. The pain is unavoidable. When we came to Earth, we signed up for it, right? We came here to experience joy and pain because we're all going to lose loved ones. We're all going to lose stuff. We're all going to go through hard times. And that's natural with life. Pain is meant to move through us. Emotions meant to move through. I'm meant to grieve my losses. I'm meant to express my anger like a young baby that is all in. When a young baby is expressing, they've got the hands and the legs in it. Everything's moving because they're getting the emotion moving and flowing so that they can return to their natural high vibration flow state. It's when we suppress the emotion and lock it into the body that it pulls us down. It literally accumulates as a heavy energy in the body over years and years and years and years and years. And then I wonder why I'm depressed. Because I'm depressing my emotions.
And disease,
that is one of the leading causes of disease is suppression of emotion that causes a disharmony in the energy body that then makes the physical body sick. And the body will keep the score, and the body will give you the early warning signs way in time for you to do something about it. We're not paying attention. We're running for the quick fix, the pharmacy, the bottle store, the computer, wherever we're running, we're just running to feel better. But no one wants to feel. Everybody wants to feel better, but nobody wants to feel. How are you going to get that right? The only way you can ever feel better is to feel, right? That's the only way. So you've got 2 choices. You can keep chasing out that way and keep circulating the suffering. It just keeps going. There's no end to it. Or you can stop running and drop in, go this way and meet what you're running away from. And when you do that, you realize it's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's not going to end your life, right? And sadly, and I'm sorry to bring a bit of a heavier comment in here, it's the running away that does end the life. It's the running away from your pain that has taken people's lives, because the suffering and the heaviness that you're sitting with becomes intolerable, The moment we start to feel what's there, that the lightness of being starts to return. And the remembering and the knowing and the deeper clarity, all of that, the authenticity, the confidence, the love,
So
the
beautiful.
contribution.
I heard an analogy this week from someone that reminded me of something that I learned at the School of Practical Philosophy that I used to go to for years in Claremont. If no one's gone, highly recommend it. And it's just this analogy that we all are pure, perfect, and complete. We are all this light bulb. When we come into this world, we all shine as brightly as the person next to you. And then through life, we get a layer of dust, and we get another layer of dust, and dust and dust and dust builds and builds and builds. But so our work is really to get rid of the dust. The joy and the pure and perfection is there. We're just covering ourselves with dust, yeah. Before we continue, anybody has a question or a comment or anything that you'd like to share? Chuck?
I just want to know what the processes are that you would take your client through, what sort of modalities.
So, yeah, thanks. It's a great question. I won't go into too much detail around the processes because that's a big conversation. But my resource toolkit is quite broad, So it's breath work, it's mindfulness stuff. There's a lot that I can bring into an experience depending on what I'm dealing with. But to maybe answer your question in this way, I think the reason I have a lot of success working with the masculine, especially the stubborn mind, is that there are many modalities out there that are trying to almost bypass the mind in order to get results. It's very hard to do that. We all know how strong the mind is. And your mind knows you better than you know yourself, right? Your mind knows you so well. It knows exactly how to trick you. It knows exactly how to sabotage you, So my work predominantly is about getting the mind on board. Because the mind doesn't know that it's not helping. The mind thinks it's doing you favors by pulling you in this direction, right? And there are different aspects of your mind. There's a range of personas, and there's a range of what we could call sub-personas that were formed during your upbringing as these strategies to help you survive your upbringing. I mentioned earlier the achiever, the people pleaser, the peacekeeper. And so these dominant strategies, they serve a purpose and help us to get by, but they keep us stuck in the very way I mentioned earlier. So instead of trying to bypass the mind, the moment your achiever self thinks you're trying to get rid of it, you've got problems because it's going to fight back really hard, So my work is about getting the mind on board. It's helping the mind to understand how important it actually is, and that we actually want to empower it, but through evolution and helping it to understand its rightful place, and helping the mind to understand that the way it's trying to keep you safe is a bit outdated. It's trying to do what it did when you were 5 years old. And there's a better way, So we bring awareness, deeper awareness as to what the pattern's all about, what's driving that pattern of behavior, whether it's addiction, whether it's being over-controlling, whatever the pattern might be. It's really important to understand every behavior and every part of your mind has a positive intention. It just doesn't always know the best way to do what it's doing or why it's the best way to get the result you actually want. So I get the mind on board, and then we go deeper in to doing the inner child-based work. It's working in the subconscious to shift the patterns. You don't change behavior at the behavioral level. You've got to get into the subconscious and get to what's really driving the behavior. And once you shift it there, you can change. Nothing changes if you don't change, so you've got to make sure that you're going right down to the subconscious,
Right to the core. There was another question here.
Specifically for men, as a man, I know that a lot of our strategies have always worked for us. I know for me that my trauma strategy has worked amazingly, specifically from a successful or success-related perspective. And I think one of the most difficult things is trying to convince a person whose strategy still works that they need to give it up and or it's going to hurt them later. And I think in that process, as specifically, I know that for a male person, the difficulty there is losing the sense of control that I've always had. And then going into this depth that where I know nothing. and whether or not, am I still going to be able to run my business? Am I going to be able to be as good at what I did? Am I going to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so you get stuck in this space. And so I don't know if there's more that you could say about that, but it was more posed as a question. And now, as I said, it's a comment because you just spoke about those strategies. So yeah, that's it.
How do you convince someone whose strategy is working? Yeah, that's, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think what you're highlighting on there is why so many men only start doing the real work when they land on their knees, or when their partner suddenly says, "I'm leaving you," because you're disconnected, you know. So what I'm hearing is my strategy is working, but is it really? You know, it's working until it isn't. And then I recognized it wasn't actually working to begin with. It was just part of my coping mechanism. So the question I would raise is it a strategy based in survival or a strategy based in creative living? Because those are two very different approaches and experiences of life, you know. And many achievers are following a survival-based strategy. It's accumulation to feel safe in the world. And it comes at the expense of joy and happiness and well-being, rather than understanding that we're meant to have the best of both. We're meant to be successful and fulfilled harmoniously together, working together. Yeah.
There was a question here.
So you mentioned that you didn't know how to love. So can you explain since then to now?
Since then to now.
Well, what has changed in your knowing of how to love? Can you explain how to love?
In a nutshell, what's your elevator pitch on how to love? 101.
It's a good question. And
Thank you.
the last time I wanted to explain to my wife how to love, she almost slapped me. Okay? Because for starters, it's not an explanation. It's not a thought. It's not a rationality. It's literally just a presence and a feeling. And it's for me, it's the big differentiator for me personally. It's about an acceptance of myself in any given moment, and not trying to be in a particular state or trying to be different to how I am. And just allowing the vulnerability, whether if I'm feeling down, or I'm feeling fatigued, or I'm feeling uplifted or joyful, it's allowing that room to be there and to be able to connect with myself and others in complete acceptance and vulnerability. For me, that's love. It's the acceptance of what is, you know. And the more we can accept what is, and the more we can move through what we're still holding, the more we start to recognize that love is more a state of being than something we do. It's a natural state of being that we return to.
Beautiful, yeah.
We can do things from love, but we are love. That sacred child before conditioning is pure love. And that's what we are returning back to.
There's another question here.
How do you work with women on their masculine?
How do I?
Work with women on their masculine.
I do work mostly with men, but I do group works. I work with leadership forums as well, which are obviously mixed gender, and I've got female coaching clients. And the way I would work with a woman who's working with a wounded masculine is very much the same as with a man, because we're working with a wounded masculine. So the gender doesn't make much difference. You know, you've got some men who are more connected into their feminine, and they've got maybe an immature or a masculine that still needs to be worked with, and then you've got some women who are more in the masculine. So it's not really about gender. So for a woman, I work a lot with women that are in leadership positions, okay, so executives, and they have very quickly also sacrificed their vulnerability to compete in a difficult environment, you know. And it's the same thing. It's helping them to understand by exploring it's self-awareness Why do I do what I do? Why do I have to control what my team does? Why do I have to micromanage? Why do I always have to have the say? Why must it always be my way? It's understanding where those patterns come from. And when you dig down, you recognize these are compensating mechanisms for unmet needs that usually come from childhood. So it's the same approach. It's helping myself to understand why I do what I do and what is the subconscious drive behind it. And when I can recognize the pattern at that level, we can shift it. So we retain the resource. If you're an achiever, we don't want to chuck the achiever out. We retain that, but you want to recognize the achiever is the resource, not the identity. It's not who you are. It's a skill you developed. And you've got to separate the two, because if you over-identify with the role, you get stuck in it, and then it creates the disconnection and the imbalance.
Because you're giving the role and the mask too much value.
The word persona, personality, the word persona literally derives from the Latin word for mask. Right? So your personality is not who you are. It's the mask, it's the dominant mask you formed to survive your upbringing. It doesn't mean it doesn't have value, but it's not who you are. It's a resource. And so you've got to be able to pull the mask off and create a separation to go, oh, I've got an achiever that knows how to achieve. I also know how to be caring and loving. I also know how to do this and that. I know how to be strong and challenging if I need to be. But I can access whatever's required when I'm in my center and in my heart, When I'm coming from essence, I can inspire my mind. And this is where we are looking for coherence between the mind, the heart, the body, and the soul. Because the mind and the ego needs to be informed by the wisdom of our being. If it's informing itself, that's where we get stuck. That's where we get stuck.
Jeepers. This is such a rich topic. I'm conscious of time, and so before we do run out, and then we'll open up for question again, if we all go home and we wake up tomorrow morning, is there one small thing, one little exercise is there something, one little exercise that we could do that brings us a little bit closer to our vulnerability and our authenticity?
The best answer is feel. Just start to feel your stuff, okay? But that's too simplistic because there's too much resistance for a lot of guys, So sitting here in this room, it's all rah, rah, rah. I love what I heard until tomorrow morning when you're on the mat trying to feel your stuff. I say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm too busy. So then the mind comes in. Too busy, too much to do, distraction, distraction, distraction. So maybe I'll answer your question this way, where I would start, and really with the understanding, and this is really a message to all men in this room and out there who are struggling in some way. There is no other path to your freedom than going back into your stuff. There's no other way. So just start with that awareness. There is no other way. Every other way is a temporary reprieve for something that's going to keep chasing you over and over and over again, right? So with that awareness in mind, wake up tomorrow morning and set the intention to replace your judgments with curiosity. If you can start there, replace judgment with curiosity. And why do I say that? Because it's the judgment that we hold that locks everything in. I cannot transform what I cannot accept. And what I resist will persist. So if I'm judging my anxiety, if I'm judging my depression, if I'm judging my fatigue or my anger or whatever's there, or just my heaviness or a prickly feeling I had, if I'm judging it because I don't want it, I'm giving it nowhere to go. I'm just locking it back in. If I can just be curious, why do I have a tight hip or a tight gut or a tight jaw? Why do I always have shoulder pain? Why am I feeling anxious this morning? But not from a judgmental place, just from a curiosity. See, curiosity welcomes in. Judgment pushes away. So just be curious And that allows or leads to acceptance. So be curious and then just accept and allow, even if for 5 minutes as a daily practice. Do a body scan and notice whatever tension you're carrying and practice feeling your stuff. Because when you feel it, you heal it. When you're feeling your heavier energies that are in your body, the feeling of the energy is the energy moving out of you. It's clearing out and taking you back into an enlightened state. All right? So give yourselves permission to feel and then develop some vulnerability. Bring some deeper conversations into your relationships. Because trying to keep the peace by not saying anything ain't keeping the peace. All right? Don't be afraid of the chaos. I used to see chaos as a destructive energy until I recognized it's actually creative. Because chaos breaks down old constructs that no longer serve you. So allow the chaos in. Let it shake things up, because then old stuff can fall away, can break down, and then what's wanting to birth, the new relationship, the renewed commitment in your relationship can happen when we're speaking honestly about the fact that our relationship's gone a bit dull. There's no spark in it. We aren't having those conversations. We just keep roboting on until it's too late. And then we want to go to counseling and all sorts. And sometimes it was too late for me. By the time we recognized there was a problem, there was no turning back.
You should have had a Shelley Lewin on.
I should have had a Shelley Lewin. Thankfully, we've got Shelley Lewin here tonight, right? So I would say just become more curious and less judgmental of what's happening in your body and with others, because we're all doing the best we can, right? And start up bringing the vulnerability into your life. That's the only way.
I know there's more questions, but we've run out of time. Please come speak to Volker afterwards. Before we close, how can people get involved? What is coming up for you? And just and by the way, as a reminder, if you do share something and you tag Volker in the Curious Exchange, he's very generously giving a personal coaching session to the value of 2,200 Rand away. So all you need to do is make a little clip, and then you're in the running for that. And also, you've got a webinar coming up. And do you want to just share about what's coming up and how people can get involved?
Just very quickly, so I've got a webinar coming up on the 30th of this month, where I'm going to be spending an hour drilling deeper into exactly what we're discussing. It's the conversation about how we get stuck, but bringing a lot more of the solution in at a deeper level, a bit more practical. You're all welcome to attend that. That's a free webinar. I'm doing a men's retreat in November. It's a 3-day retreat. It's a deep immersion, deeply transformative, nature-based, out in Franschhoek, at the retreat space where we live. So if you are curious and if what I'm saying resonates, just get in touch either via my website, Instagram, or LinkedIn, or somewhere. I am the only Volker Schlettwein you'll ever meet. There are not two of me. Thank you for not swearing at me when you introduced me earlier.
I have to swear.
I think I'm carrying trauma just from my name being called so many different things. But please, so connect with me through one of those mediums, right? Instagram, website, whatever, and I can then direct you either start with a webinar, come to a retreat, or if you want to have a conversation about potentially do some coaching, those are the ways we can potentially work together. Every now and then we put some events together, like a breathwork event, to help us get into the body as well. So there are...
Do you want to mention the work that you do with Heart Quest? Just as a mention, or no?
I'll just mention that very briefly. We have I'm supporting a foundation called the Heart Quest Foundation that is owned by a really good friend of mine, Simon Bowley, who owns the retreat space where I live. And what the Heart Quest Foundation does is they take youth from the Cape Flats and outlying challenged environments, heavily traumatized young men and women. When I say heavily traumatized, I mean like the worst of the worst that these guys have experienced. And they come through a program with an organization called Chrysalis, which is an academy in Takai that takes them through a 3-month program. Then they come to Umami, where we take them through an 11-day heart quest, which includes a 4-day solo in the mountains. And we are helping them heal their deepest trauma and giving them a complete new lease in life. The whole point is to get them to either higher education through bursary or to employment. But we've got them facing their deepest shadows, and they're doing the courageous work, and it's so inspiring. So if you're curious about any of what I've shared, please feel free to get in touch.
Thank you so much. Thank you.